Dear Edna Sloane is an epistolary novel because, of course, I can never just write a straightforward novel. There always has to be something kind of weird about it. Um, it was really fun to write, though. But I wrote it in a time when I was just feeling very kind of stuck and frustrated with my writing life. Like it was so I actually wrote it before Unseen City was published. So I was having a really hard time finding a publisher for Unseen City, because it was kind of so different than my previous book, and and for various, like inside baseball publishing reasons, it just I had this feeling like, okay, was that it? I'm just gonna publish 2 books and then I can't get anything else off the ground? And I switched agents and all this. I just felt very kind of stagnant. Um, and ironically, like now I understand that things were happening, and I got a new agent and she was sending out Unseen City um but it all was a very slow process. So in that time, I was feeling like, what is my writing life? And this this idea, and I was working as an editor at a publication like Seth is in the book, and sort of felt like I had these bifurcated writing lives. Like I had my work life where I was writing and editing, but I wasn't writing novels. And then I had this like novelist self that almost felt like um yeah, like, I wasn't sure where she had gone, and I thought, I think a lot of writers have these kind of 2 selves. It's like the outward self who's doing the writing for pay, and then the inward self. Um, for a couple lucky people, those selves are integrated, but then a lot of us, are writing books, not as our main job. Um and so I was thinking about these kind of 2 versions of the writing life, and and I feel like that's one of those books where just kind of the voice of one of the characters just kind of started talking in my head, and like, the voice of Edna Sloane kind of popped into my head so clearly. She's kind of this, like, no nonsense, old school New Yorker, and so I started writing her letters first, actually, which is, like, out of order in how the book works. But I was thinking a lot about, what is it to be a writer? And what is it to have this public and private self? And what does it mean for a writer? In the book, she is a novelist who has had this one huge book that was like a massive success. It's like every writer's kind of dream. It was a bestseller and it won all the awards and she became sort of famous. And everyone was like, Edna, where's your next book? Which is all complete fantasy. I think that's just a fantasy that novelists have about what it'll be like to be a novelist. Um, and then she, just disappears, and it's, I can't remember anymore, 30 years later or something, and she hasn't published anything, no one knows. There's, like, rumors that she died, there's rumors that she left the city, that she's in some other industry, and so Seth, this young editor, is trying to find her, um, and yeah, I think too that part of the fantasy too is this kind of old school idea of a novelist just goes off in their garret and writes and doesn't have to it doesn't engage with the world and doesn't have to like read reviews of their book or see how much people on Goodreads hated it or whatever it is, but is only involved in sort of the art and she has no public persona. She has no, um, platform. She has no social media. And even though in my life, I enjoy those, I enjoy social media, I enjoy interfacing with readers and that kind of thing, but there is, sort of this fantasy of, what if you didn't have to do anything but just go write your books? I think I do really have, like, a picture in my head of what the characters look like, and I used to for I think I just did this for Unseen City, maybe for Mermaid of Brooklyn, but I used to make Pinterest boards. I know a lot of writers use Pinterest when they're drafting, um, and where I would put together like, have a private Pinterest board that no one else can see but me, but just to, like, organize visual inspiration and people who maybe look like how I want the characters to look or or have, like, their style or something, and because it helped me get really specific and precise about, "Okay, how this isn't these characters aren't just these blobs, like, who are they?" Um, and, yeah, Edna, I feel like I can picture her, I can hear her, um, she's, uh she's, like, in her late 60s, she's, like, a no-nonsense, New Yorker, one of those New Yorker women who is, like, just has this, like, intense energy that kind of, like, buzzes around them, um, and, yeah, it was really fun to write in her voice. I felt like she was, I don't know, my imaginary friend or something, um, and because I think she's so sure of herself and so, has so much integrity in a way that I feel like is aspirational. But yeah, she was fun to talk with. Yeah, it's like with How Far Is the Ocean From Here? At the beginning, I kinda didn't know exactly how it was gonna resolve, but, and early in the process, I had this thought that they would meet and, like, have an affair. He's so much younger than her, he's in his 20s, but because I just thought, like, that felt kind of taboo and kind of fascinating, and and weirdly, like, it would be kind of like a metaphorical way to connect these 2 kind of writer selves, and then the more I wrote, the more I thought, "No, it's not about that." I mean, they have, like, a slightly erotic energy, I think, but also she feels kind of motherly towards him, and also I love this character, Seth. I do think he's very annoying. He has that, like, 20-something respect to 20-somethings, but, just, like, very hungry energy, and he just wants to be a writer, capital W writer, so badly. He doesn't write very much. He's, like, not doing the work, but he loves the idea of it so much, um, and I just think he's, like, not a serious enough person for them to actually kind of become friends. Maybe later, maybe in, like, 10 years, they can meet up again and, I don't know, have a great day at the Met or something. Animal Instinct, when I started writing it in in, like, mid-2020, and there is this AI element that at the time felt like science fiction to me. There's this woman who is recently divorced. She's dating on the apps for the first time. She starts to think, and you get this weird kind of fragmented view of people when you encounter their app profiles before encountering them in the flesh. Um, which for someone who, entered the dating world before any of that existed feels, I think, extra kind of artificial and odd. And so she's looking at the apps and realizes that she doesn't actually want to, she knows exactly what she wants. Like, she doesn't want to pick from who's available. She wants to create the perfect person based on sort of the best elements of each of the people she encounters. And she's an app developer. So she has the skills to, and she's working on an AI project for her day job. So she starts to create and train this AI that's going to be her ideal person to date. And yeah, when I started writing it, I thought, what a clever and obviously metaphorical idea. And now the book is coming out in a time when that's a thing. We now have AI that people date AI. I mean, I don't know if it's frequently, but it's just so much more of presence in our everyday lives, which is frankly, I don't know, really weird to me. But this was probably the hardest part of the book to write because I am not an app developer and I don't know anything about AI or tech or anything. So, I had to sort of do some research, and I talked to some people who are much more involved in AI or work in tech, like on the tech side. Um, and something that was not kind of there in the first draft that I had to revise and refine was the evolution of Frankie, of the AI, because especially if in the early kind of training stages, you know, um, an AI is not like it's essentially, just a chatbot. And at first it's very clunky and now I'm trying to remember. I think at first it's almost like aggressive towards her, which and she realizes she's fed too much of her experiences chatting with people on the apps into this AI. It's like hyper sexual in almost like a threatening, kind of violent tinged way. Um, and then she kind of, reconfigures it. And then it's almost too polite. It's like the chatbots that we're all used to talking to all the time is like a customer service tool, and feels very robotic. And so then as she keeps working on it and as it learns and develops more, it starts to sound more natural. It starts to sound more like she's talking to another person. Yeah, so that was a lot of kind of fine tuning as I was writing to kind of have that voice develop and start to sound more, not without giving too much away, starts to sound more like someone who you really would want to date.